People say funerals bring families together. Whoever said that never met my stepmother. Hey everyone, before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss stories like this. Now, let's start today's story. The moment I stepped inside the church for my father's service, I felt it. Something was wrong. Not the usual heaviness or grief you expect when burying a parent, but something colder, sharper. A tension that slithered through the pews like smoke. And its source stood right at the front. Denise. She was greeting people as if she were hosting a charity gala, smiling, shaking hands, giving dramatic sighs at all the right moments. She wore a black dress that fit too perfectly, makeup that hadn't budged an inch, and a pearl necklace that sparkled more than her supposed tears. If grief were a performance, she deserved an award. When her eyes landed on me, her expression flickered, too quick for most to notice, but I caught it. A flash of annoyance. Then she smoothed it into what she probably thought was warmth. "Emily," she gushed, pulling me into a hug I didn't want. Her perfume hit me like a wall. "You made it." "Made it?" He was my father. But I said nothing. I didn't trust my voice not to betray the frustration simmering in my chest. Fighting with Denise during Dad's funeral would have only given her more attention, and she was already desperate to own the entire spotlight. She had arranged everything. The guest list, the music, the pastor, the flowers, even the text in the obituary. She didn't ask my input once, not even out of courtesy. Dad had only been married to her for 3 years. 3 years, long enough for her to worm her way into our family business, his finances, and, apparently, every final decision about his death. I spotted the seating chart taped on the podium. Denise had placed herself at the center of the front pew, flanked by her sister and 2 cousins. My name appeared on the second row. Not with family, not near the front. Second row. As if I were some distant relative and not his only child. My throat tightened. I swallowed the sting of humiliation and sat where she assigned me. The pastor spoke, but my mind drifted. Memories surfaced, Dad braiding my hair when I was 6, teaching me how to ride a bike, cheering at my college graduation. But each memory came with the bitter reminder that the last years of his life had been overshadowed by her. When the service ended, people lined up to console Denise. She soaked up every handshake, every "you're so strong," every tear-filled compliment like it was oxygen. She hugged strangers longer than she had hugged me. After the burial, she announced she was hosting a gathering at her house. I didn't want to go, but guilt nudged me. Dad would have expected me to be there, even if he wasn't the one who planned it. Her house was immaculate as always, too perfect, too staged. And then I saw it. The photo wall. Above the fireplace had always hung a framed picture of Dad and me from my college graduation. He looked proud, arms around my shoulders, smiling wider than I'd ever seen. That picture had lived there for years. Now it was gone. In its place hung a large framed photo of Denise and Dad on a cruise, both wearing matching sun hats, both smiling like they had no idea cancer was coming for him. My stomach knotted. I scanned the room for any trace of the old photo. Nothing. Like it had never existed. As the evening dragged on, Denise floated around retelling exaggerated, almost theatrical stories about Dad's final days, stories that weren't true. She claimed he whispered romantic things to her in his last moments. She claimed he wanted her to take control of everything. She even told someone he said I was too emotional to handle affairs. My hands clenched around my cup. I knew my father. Even in chemo, even in pain, he had been thoughtful, precise, rational. He never said anything like that. He never hid things from me. While I stood near the kitchen, trying to swallow the bitterness in my throat, her sister Brenda drifted toward me. "Rough day for you, huh?" she drawled, swirling a glass of wine. "But at least Denise has everything handled. She's the executor, you know." The words sliced through me. "No, she's not," I said instantly. "Dad told me I would be." Brenda smiled, no, smirked, like she was enjoying this. "Sweetheart, he updated the will. Denise told us." My pulse thundered. "When? Why didn't he tell me?" She shrugged. "People forget things at the end." But Dad didn't forget. Even during chemo he remembered birthdays, the balance in every account, the date of my next work presentation. He had been more organized than most healthy people. Something was wrong. As the night wound down, I approached Denise. Her back stiffened before I even spoke. "Can we talk about Dad's will?" I asked quietly. She turned, her face cold. The grieving widow act vanished. "What about it?" Brenda told me you said he updated it. I'd like to see it. It's private, she replied sharply. And frankly, Emily, I'm surprised you're already asking about inheritance. Your father would be disappointed. My father told me I was executor. Well, she said with a shrug, he changed his mind. Show me proof. Not tonight, she snapped. I'm grieving. She brushed past me, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and lies behind her. I left before I said something I couldn't take back. The whole drive home, my hands shook around the steering wheel. Dad would never cut me out. Never. Not without telling me. Not without discussing it. Not after everything we'd been through. Something didn't add up. The next morning, I acted on instinct. I drove to my childhood home, Dad's house, the house Denise had taken over the moment she married him. She wasn't there, she'd been staying with her sister often. The house felt hollow. Too quiet. Too unfamiliar. I walked straight to Dad's office. That room had always smelled like cedar, ink, and old paper. But now, it smelled like nothing. Like emptiness. His desk was spotless. Too spotless. Dad's desk was always tidy, but never empty. He always kept notes, letters, folders neatly stacked. Now it looked like it had been scooped clean. The filing cabinet, empty. His drawers, empty. A chill spread across my spine. Then I noticed the rug under his desk, misaligned by a few inches. Dad never left it crooked. I lifted the corner. The safe, open, empty. Denise had taken something from it. Something she didn't want me to find. But there was something she didn't know, something Dad told only me. He never kept the real will in that safe. He kept it somewhere no one else would ever think to look. And I knew exactly where it was. When I was 12, my father told me something that felt like a secret mission, a truth wrapped in one of his gentle, thoughtful lessons. Important things, he said, placing a hand on my shoulder, are never hidden where thieves expect them. They're hidden where loved ones know to look. I didn't understand the depth of that message back then. At 12, I thought it made him sound like a wise character from a mystery novel. But standing in the ruins left behind after Denise's lies, his empty desk drawers, the gutted filing cabinet, the open, robbed floor safe, those words came back to me with almost eerie clarity. And suddenly, they weren't just a childhood memory. They were a map. A map to the truth Denise thought she had stolen. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to the place he meant, the old lakeside cabin he built before I was even born. Dad and I spent countless summers there, fishing off the dock, patching the leaky roof, painting the porch with cheap brushes that always lost their bristles. That cabin held more of his heart than his actual house ever did. Denise, of course, had refused to go. There's no cell service, she had complained once. And the spiders there are practically the size of dogs. Perfect. She stayed away from anything that didn't flatter her. I parked in the gravel driveway, the tires crunching the same way they always had. When I unlocked the front door, a soft creak greeted me, familiar, comforting, almost like the cabin itself remembered me. Inside, the air was dusty but still, peaceful, untouched. Exactly the way Dad left it the last time we spent a weekend here together, nearly a year before he passed. I didn't waste a second. My feet carried me straight to the living room, to the old worn leather armchair where Dad used to read. I gripped its sides and pushed it aside, revealing the wooden floorboard beneath. The board lifted easily, just as it had when Dad showed me this hiding place when I was 14. Only for emergencies, he'd said, slipping me a wink. And only for you. Those words echoed in my mind as I knelt down and saw it. A metal lockbox. My breath caught in my chest. My hands trembled as I lifted it out of the hollow space. The weight of it was familiar, solid, real, unlike every lie Denise had been spinning. The key, I knew, would still be in the drawer of the nightstand in the bedroom. Dad was predictable in the best way. I found it in seconds. When I unlocked the box and opened it, the first thing I saw was a folded piece of paper, handwritten, addressed to me. Emily, if you're reading this, it means I trusted the right person. Dad. My throat tightened. The room blurred. For a moment, I had to close my eyes and let myself feel the weight of it, his trust, his intention, his final message to me. Under the note were documents. Bank statements. Property deeds. Insurance forms. A few personal letters he must have written during his treatments. And at the very bottom, sealed carefully inside a plastic folder. Dad's original will. I pulled it out gently, my hands shaking as I opened it. And there it was, clear, precise, unmistakably authentic. I was the sole executor. I inherited the main house, the lakeside cabin, and 80% of his estate. Denise was provided a living allowance, the new car, and 20%, but only under the condition that she remained married to Dad until his passing, which she technically fulfilled. But nowhere, absolutely nowhere, was there mention of an update. No amendments. No revisions. No second will. This was final. My heart pounded. My thoughts raced. So what had Denise shown Brenda? What had she shown the lawyer? A forged document? Or had she actually destroyed what she thought was the real will, from the floor safe she was so sure held everything? The realization struck me like a punch. Denise believed she had successfully erased me. She thought she had cleared her path to everything, Dad's house, Dad's wealth, Dad's life's work. She thought she had played the perfect game. But she had never known about Dad's secret hiding place. And she definitely didn't expect me to be holding the real, legally binding will. Still, having it was only half the battle. I needed to protect it. Document it. Make it undeniable. I drove home with the lockbox beside me on the passenger seat, feeling like I was carrying a bomb, one capable of blowing Denise's entire scheme apart. At home, I worked quickly. Scanned the will into my cloud storage. Uploaded it to 2 encrypted drives. Printed multiple copies. Placed the original into a fireproof folder. Stored the lockbox again in a safer place. Only then did I let myself breathe. The next morning, I called my father's estate lawyer, Mr. Caldwell, a man my father trusted for more than 2 decades. He answered after 2 rings. "Emily," he said, his voice formal but not unfriendly. "I was expecting your call." My heart skipped. "About the will?" He hesitated. "Yes. Denise contacted me last week. She said your father updated his will 2 months before his passing." My grip tightened on the phone. "He didn't," I said firmly. "I have the original." Silence, thick, weighted, meaningful. "Emily," he finally said, "if you do, you need to bring it here as soon as possible." "When is the reading?" I asked. "In an hour." I grabbed my bag, placed the folder inside, and drove. When I arrived outside Caldwell and Lee legal offices, Denise's black luxury SUV was already parked crookedly in the visitor spot, like she owned the building. She stood on the sidewalk wearing expensive sunglasses that covered half her face, arms crossed, posture smug. "Oh, Emily," she said coolly, glancing at my bag. "You're just in time." I smiled faintly. "You have no idea." Inside the conference room, Denise seated herself at the head of the table like it was her throne. Beside her sat her attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Linda, who had a thick folder of documents in front of them. Mr. Caldwell entered last, carrying only a single envelope. He sat down, adjusted his glasses, and cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" Denise immediately placed her hand on Linda's folder. "Before we start," she said sweetly, "I'd like to present the updated will my husband signed before he passed." Linda opened the folder and pulled out a document covered in signatures that were, at a glance, too clean, too perfect, too smooth. A forgery. Denise lifted her chin. "Everything goes to me," she announced proudly. "Given Emily's distance from the family." Distance? That nearly made me laugh. Instead, I reached into my bag, removed the fireproof folder, and slid it across the table, directly toward Mr. Caldwell. "Before you proceed," I said steadily, "here is my father's real will." Denise's face went white. Mr. Caldwell opened it. He read one line. Then another. Then he looked at Denise. Her jaw was trembling. Her plan, months of scheming, lying, manipulating, was about to crumble right in front of her. And she knew it. The room fell silent the second my folder touched the table. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your eardrums, thick, heavy, suffocating. Denise blinked once, twice, like her brain needed an extra second to process what I'd just done. Then her lips stretched into a stiff, trembling smile, the kind people wear when they're 2 seconds from cracking apart. What is that supposed to be?" she demanded, voice sharp and shaky. "The real will," I said calmly, placing my hands on the table, steady and unflinching. Her lawyer, Linda, frowned and reached for the document. But Mr. Caldwell raised one hand, firm and authoritative. "I will review it," he said, leaving no room for argument. He opened the folder and slid out the will I'd brought from Dad's lockbox. The moment his eyes landed on the first page, something shifted in his expression. Recognition. relief, and then unmistakable anger. He scanned the pages quickly, flipping through each with growing intensity. After a long, tense minute, he leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly, deliberately. "This," he said, tapping the first page with his index finger, "is indeed the authentic will. This," he lifted Denise's document between two fingers, "is absolutely not." A thin, sharp gasp escaped Denise, like her chest caved inward. "That's impossible," she snapped. "My husband signed that himself. He updated it. I was there." Mr. Caldwell didn't even blink. "Your husband did not update his will. In fact, he asked me, 2 months before he passed, if he needed to revise anything. He told me he was satisfied with all arrangements. There was no updated will." Her lips quivered violently. "But," he told me, "he must have changed his mind." Linda, her lawyer, slowly closed the forged will and cleared her throat with a sound that somehow felt like a judgment. "Denise, did you draft this document?" Denise hesitated. 1 second too long. I didn't. Brenda helped. "I mean, we all thought. You forged a legal document," Linda said coldly, sliding her chair back with a screech. "I cannot represent you in this." Denise jerked toward her in panic. "What? You can't leave, I need you to defend me." Linda stood, gathering her briefcase with clinical precision. "I don't defend felonies." And she walked out without a single glance back, leaving the door to shut behind her with a heavy, sentencing thud. Denise looked from the door to me to Mr. Caldwell, wild, frantic, desperate. Her world was collapsing faster than she could grab onto it. Mr. Caldwell set both wills aside and folded his hands calmly. "Denise, your actions have serious legal consequences. Forging a will is a felony punishable by prison time." Denise's face drained to a chalky white. No, I didn't mean, I was just trying to protect myself. Emily was never around as much as I was. I took care of him every day. I deserved something." "You were given something," I said quietly. "Dad made sure you'd be taken care of. You got 20%. A car. A monthly allowance. But that wasn't enough for you." She glared at me, eyes burning with resentment. "You were always the favorite." Because I didn't lie to him, I shot back, unable to hold the words in any longer. Her shoulders shook. Her breathing went shallow and ragged, like she was drowning. "Emily, listen," she said, her voice cracking. "We don't need to involve the police. We can talk about this. We can find a compromise. Maybe split everything." "No," I said sharply. "You tried to erase me from my father's life. You stole from him. From me. I'm not negotiating." She opened her mouth again, but Mr. Caldwell cut in with unwavering authority. "This will," he said, lifting Dad's original, "is legally binding. Emily inherits all listed assets. Denise, you retain the secondary benefits in your husband's will, but your attempt to commit fraud will be reported to law enforcement." Denise shot up from her chair so fast it toppled backward, clattering loudly against the floor. She pointed a trembling finger at him. "You can't do this." "I'm not doing anything," he replied calmly. "You did this to yourself." Her face twisted into something almost unrecognizable, rage, panic, fear, humiliation all mashed together. Then she stormed out of the conference room, slamming the door behind her so hard the glass rattled. Silence settled over the room, a calmer silence this time, like the air itself was exhaling after holding its breath too long. For the first time since Dad's death, a weight lifted from my chest. Relief, soft but palpable, washed through me. But the relief didn't last long. Mr. Caldwell cleared his throat and turned to me with a solemn expression. "Emily, there's something else." My stomach tightened. "What is it?" He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a smaller envelope. My name was written in a familiar handwriting, slanted, neat, unmistakably Dad's. "He left this with me months ago," Mr. Caldwell said gently. "He asked me to give it to you after the will was read." My heart pounded. "Thank you," I whispered. I stepped out into the hallway, away from the lingering tension of the conference room. Alone, I slid a finger under the seal and opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "My Emily. I know Denise can be difficult. I know she may try to make things messy when I'm gone. That's why you must trust yourself. You are stronger and smarter than she gives you credit for. More than that, you are my greatest pride. Whatever she does, remember this, you are my family. Love, Dad. My vision blurred instantly. Tears slipped down my cheeks in silent streams. Not the broken sobs I'd cried at the hospital. Not the numb tears at the funeral. These were different. These were warm. Healing. For the first time since he passed, I felt him with me, truly with me. But the letter wasn't the only thing inside the envelope. Behind it was a small brass key, a red ribbon tied carefully around it. Attached was a tiny handwritten note. For the future I always hoped you'd build. Go to the cabin. You'll know what to do. I closed my fist around the key. There was more of Dad's story left to uncover. And somehow, deep in my gut, I knew. Denise wasn't done with her chaos either. There was still another storm coming. And I needed to be ready. I drove to the cabin with Dad's letter beside me on the passenger seat, the little brass key glinting in the sunlight like it was alive. I had no idea what he meant by "you'll know what to do," but if Dad believed that, if he trusted me with something this important, then I had to trust myself too. Even if my hands were shaking the entire drive there. The road to the cabin was the same narrow gravel path I had memorized as a child, surrounded by towering pines that whispered whenever the wind passed through them. Every bump felt like a memory. Summer mornings with Dad frying eggs on the old cast-iron pan, the smell of firewood, the crackle of the radio that barely worked. It had been our place. Mine and Dad's. Denise never bothered to come. She always complained about the bugs, the rustic walls, and, as she famously put it, the barbaric lack of Wi-Fi, which made it the perfect hiding place. The cabin sat quiet under the canopy of old trees, their shadows stretching long in the late afternoon light. Nothing looked disturbed. No footprints. No tire marks. No reason for anyone to know there was more hidden here than fishing lures and old blankets. I stepped inside, feeling the familiar warmth and the soft groan of the wooden floorboards beneath my shoes. Dust floated in the sunbeams slicing through the windows. The place smelled like pine, old paper, and Dad. My throat tightened. Immediately, my eyes drifted to the framed painting above the fireplace, an oil painting of the lake Dad and I used to fish on. It was his favorite place, the one spot he said felt untouched by time. I hadn't thought about it in years, but now the memory resurfaced like it had been waiting patiently. Dad once told me, half joking and half serious, if anything ever happens to me, that painting is worth more than the whole cabin combined. Back then, I assumed he meant emotionally. Sentimentally. But now, with everything that had happened, with Denise's lies, the forged will, the lawyer meeting, I wasn't so sure. Something tugged at my intuition. I removed the painting from the wall. It was heavier than I expected, and for a second, I wondered if I was being ridiculous. But then I saw it. Behind the painting, built into the wall, was a small wooden compartment I had never noticed before. Perfectly square. Perfectly hidden. And it had a tiny brass lock, the exact same shape as the key Dad left for me. My breath caught sharply in my chest. He left me something here. And he trusted only me to find it. My fingers trembled as I inserted the key. It slid in smoothly, like it had been waiting for this moment all along. A soft click echoed through the quiet cabin when the lock released. Inside, I found a metal tin, a stack of sealed letters tied with string, and a small black notebook. My heart hammered as I placed everything carefully on the table. My hands hesitated before opening the metal tin first. Inside were documents, financial papers, account statements, legal forms. At first, they seemed random, but as I flipped through them, a chilling pattern emerged. Every page was like a warning Dad had prepared long before he died. Dad had been preparing for Denise. Not to support her. To protect me from her. My stomach twisted as I recognized the nature of the documents, records of Denise's secret credit card debts, evidence of her so-called business investments that were actually front companies for pyramid scams, and even screenshots printed out, emails she sent to a friend bragging that she'd retire early once Harold's health declines. My pulse quickened. My face grew hot. He knew. He knew she was using him. Manipulating him. Taking advantage of his illness. And instead of confronting her immediately, he gathered evidence, because he knew Denise was the type who would cause chaos if accused with nothing to back it up. The letters were next. They were addressed to Dad from a private investigator. My jaw dropped. Dad had hired a PI. My hands shook as I read through them. Page after page, the truth sank deeper and colder into my bones. Denise wasn't just selfish. She wasn't just manipulative. She had tried to get Dad to sign documents, financial ones, legal ones, while he was sedated during chemotherapy rounds. He refused every time. But she kept trying. And that explained the forged will. She had been planning this for months. Maybe longer. I reached for the black notebook last. It was worn, the pages frayed at the edges. Dad's journal. The thought made my throat close with grief. His handwriting filled every page, messy, rushed, emotional. I flipped to the section he wrote during his final months. His words blurred as tears pricked my eyes. Emily doesn't know how strong she is. She thinks she's alone, but she's not. I'm leaving everything in the right hands. Denise. I should have listened to Emily's instincts sooner. I hope she forgives me. My chest ached so hard it hurt to breathe. He trusted me. He believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. But before I could turn the next page, my phone buzzed violently on the table. The sudden sound made me jump. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. Hello. I said cautiously. A shaky, furious voice hissed through the speaker. Emily. Denise. My grip tightened. My pulse throbbed in my ears. What do you want? I asked coldly. You think you won today? She snarled. You humiliated me. You made me look like a criminal. You took everything from me, she spat. There was panic beneath her rage. I loved your father. I took care of him. I deserved more than scraps. Dad gave you a comfortable life. A good life, I replied. It wasn't enough for you because you never cared about him. You cared about what he could give you. A long, venomous silence stretched. Then she whispered, low and vicious. You'll regret doing this to me. The call ended. For a moment, I just stood there, heart pounding, staring at the cabin door as if Denise might burst through it. She wouldn't give up easily. She was desperate now, and desperate people were dangerous. I gathered everything from the hidden compartment, papers, letters, the notebook, and packed them into my bag. These weren't just keepsakes. They were proof. Evidence. A final message Dad left for me. As I stepped outside, the last rays of the sun hit the lake, turning it gold. The air felt heavy, but also strangely clear. Dad hadn't just left me a will. He'd left me the truth. And I had a feeling this wasn't the end of Denise's schemes. Not for her. And definitely not for me. 2 days after the will reading, Denise's crimes became public record. I didn't have to expose her myself. Mr. Caldwell handled everything with the calm efficiency of a man who had expected this storm long before it arrived. He gathered the forged documents, the PI reports Dad had commissioned, copies of the emails Denise had written bragging she'd retire early, and even the evidence of her secret debts she'd hidden behind Dad's back. Everything, neatly packaged, authenticated, and undeniable, was handed over to the authorities. Denise was summoned for questioning. She didn't show up. When the police went to her sister's house, she wasn't there either. Her phone was off. Her SUV was gone. Even her social media profiles, normally updated daily with glamorous selfies and inspirational quotes, had gone silent. Denise had vanished. Part of me wasn't surprised. Denise was many things, vain, manipulative, selfish, but she wasn't stupid. She knew what was coming for her. She knew the charges wouldn't be light. Forgery, fraud, attempted estate manipulation, it was enough to ruin her life, and she knew it. So she did what cowards do. She ran. The police issued a notice, assured me they were searching, and explained she might be caught in a day or maybe a month. Strangely, I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Dad had prepared everything. He'd left me proof, truth, and strength. Enough to stand on, enough to protect myself. But Denise wasn't finished with her final act. 3 nights later, I woke to a sound that shot straight through the silence like a blade, the crunch of gravel outside my window. The cabin was quiet, windless, dark. The type of stillness that made every sound echo twice as loud. Crunch. Footsteps. Slow. Unsteady. Getting closer. I slipped out of bed, heart pounding but strangely controlled. Fear didn't grip me the way I expected, it sharpened me. Heightened everything. I grabbed my phone, not needing to check the window to know who it was. Denise. I moved to the living room and peeked through the curtain. There she was. Disheveled hair, mascara streaked down her face, wearing the same black dress from the will reading as if she hadn't changed in days. Her shoes were muddy. Her hands shook. And in one of them, a baseball bat. She looked like a ghost, like guilt and fear had eaten her alive. She stumbled toward the cabin door, lifting the bat with shaking arms. Enough was enough. Before she could pound on the door, I opened it. Her eyes widened, not with surprise, but with a wild, unstable determination. "You," she growled, stepping forward. "You ruined my life." I kept my voice steady. "Put the bat down, Denise. You stole everything from me," she screamed, spit flying. "Your father wanted me to have this. To have the life I deserved. He loved you," I said carefully, "but he didn't trust you." That cut deeper than I expected. She flinched, her face twisting as if I'd struck her physically. "You liar." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the journal, Dad's handwriting visible through the transparent cover. "This is his," I said softly. "Everything he thought. Everything he planned. Everything he knew." Her eyes locked on the notebook like it was poison. Her fingers twitched. The bat trembled in her grip. He wouldn't, no, he trusted me. He knew about the debts," I said. "About the pressure. The manipulation. The documents you tried to get him to sign. He knew everything, Denise." She staggered back, her breath coming out in ragged gasps. "No. I didn't mean to. I didn't want to hurt him." "If you loved him," I asked quietly, "why forge his will?" She didn't answer. She sank to her knees in the dirt, sobbing violently. The bat slipped from her fingers and rolled into the grass. That was when red and blue police lights washed across the trees, flashing like judgment itself. Someone must have seen her car on the old road. Or perhaps Mr. Caldwell had warned local officers she might try something reckless. Whatever happened, the timing was perfect. 2 officers approached cautiously. "Denise Crawford?" one asked. She lifted her blotchy, tear-stained face. It's Crawford Smith," she whispered hoarsely. "He was my husband." The officers didn't comment. They helped her up gently but firmly and began reading her rights. She didn't fight. Didn't scream. Didn't even glance at me. She looked hollow. Empty. Like all the lies she had built her life on had finally crushed her from the inside out. It was over. Dad once told me that the truth has a strange way of rising, slowly, painfully, but inevitably. He was right. 2 months later, I stood on the porch of the cabin, watching the lake. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the sky like glass. The same lake Dad used to say, never judges, only listens. The cabin was mine now, legally, peacefully, finally. Inside, on the fireplace mantel, I had placed our old fishing photo where it belonged. Dad smiling in his faded cap. Me beside him, beaming with pride. No one else in the picture. Just us. I opened the journal again, flipping to the very last page. Dad's final sentence stared up at me in his familiar handwriting, uneven, tired, but full of heart. "Family is who stays when everything else falls apart." A tear slipped down my cheek, warm, but not painful. Because everything had fallen apart. And somehow, everything had also fallen into place. Denise eventually faced trial. She pleaded guilty. She wasn't given prison time. Dad would have wanted mercy, not vengeance. But she was sentenced to community service, 3 years of supervised probation, and mandatory financial counseling. She lost everything she tried so desperately to steal. I gained everything Dad intended for me, not just assets, but truth, closure, and the strength he always believed I carried. I locked the cabin door behind me, feeling lighter than I had in months. Dad hadn't simply left me a will. He left me justice. He left me peace. He left me the future he always wanted for me. As I walked down to the lake with the journal pressed to my chest, I whispered the words I never got to say. "Thank you, Dad. For trusting me. For protecting me. For everything." The wind carried my voice across the water. And for the first time since losing him, I felt whole. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories like this. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.